A very good evening and a very warm welcome to the very distinguished guest we have with us this Friday evening and to all the participants who have joined us. We have a very distinguished personality who's come a long way from mechanical engineering to industrial engineering and to a number of experiences which include leading Microsoft, which we'll take on when we come to the introduction. And I'd also like to mention that at this stage that Sir Ravi Venkatesan ji wanted to have a change in the topic to a book that he has published. What the heck do I do with my life? And that can be even more interesting for all of us today. A lot of things which are happening around us could be woven into that with a very personal context. So, sir, a very warm welcome and namaste to you.
That'll be better if you call me Ravi instead of Sir. I'm more used to my own name.
Yes, Ravi.
Thank you. But it's joy to be here with you.
Yes. So we'll start with a small introduction, as brief as possible, because we'd like to have Ravi's brief session of about 15-20 minutes, followed by a very rich Q&A discussion. There you go. This is our 204th conversation. There's a title change. What the heck do I do with my life? Is the new title. And we have Sri Ravi Venkatesan, Ravi, as he wants us to call us. And the session is up till 7:30, and hopefully we'll be able to cover all the questions by then. Here we are. This is the brief profile. Ravi is absolutely well known. I think a lot of us in academia, certainly it's a name. He's a business leader. He's also involved in being a social entrepreneur in both the energy as well as the entrepreneurship field. He's an author of 2 best-selling books as well. So you can see the 2 organizations which he heads. One is GAPP and the other is GAME, one on entrepreneurship, the other on energy. He's served in a lot of very, very senior, interesting positions, and which is what is relevant to us in terms of the vast experience, the breadth and the depth. Cummins, chairman of Microsoft India, chairman of Bank of Baroda, co-chairman of Infosys Limited, UNICEF special representative for young people. And these are the 2 books which he has written. What the heck do I do with my life? And how to flourish in turbulent times. The second one is Conquering the Chaos, Win in India, Win Everywhere. And very interestingly, he's also one of India's best management thinkers, Thinkers 50. And I think this is, we've not had too many speakers with this title in India. He's a BTech from IIT Bombay, Mechanical Engineering, MS from Purdue University, MBA from Harvard Business School with a Baker Scholarship. I think extremely fine educational and work, huge achievements in both areas. I leave it to Ravi to continue the discussion. And meanwhile, Professor Sudhakar Rao is also joined. Thank you, Professor Sudhakar Rao, for making it just in time.
Thank you, Professor Prasad, for doing the introduction. We can stop sharing the screen.
There you are.
So is it mine now?
Yeah, welcome, sir. Welcome, sir, once again. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us.
No, thank you.
I missed the great privilege and honor to introduce you because I was late by 3 minutes. However, this time is saved to listen to you. The conversation will begin now. I had an important agenda to finish, which was unavoidable, so I was on the road.
No, it's no problem at all.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to thank both of you for inviting me here this evening. I want to thank our online attendees. We have about 31 of them. And on a Friday night, all of you could be doing something more interesting, but you've chosen to join this. And so I highly appreciate that. I decided, look, this topic of how to make Viksit Bharat is something that is well above my pay grade. It is best left to our Prime Minister and other people. I want to talk about something which I think is infinitely more interesting and relevant to every person, which is jobs, careers, success, particularly in the age of AI. So what I'd like to do, basis your suggestion, Professor Rao, is to talk for maybe 15 minutes, set up some provocative ideas, and then get into conversation. And hopefully the audience will ask lots of interesting questions. So first of all, I'm not sure it's visible on the screen behind me. It's the cover of my last book. But in the middle of the book is a strange thing. There's a dinosaur, there's T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. And somebody will ask, well, why do you have T-Rex on the cover? Well, the reason is very simple. Dinosaurs were amazing animals. They ruled the planet for 200 million years. In context, humans have not been around for more than 2 million years. And these were the most dominant animals for 200 million. And then one day, 65 million years ago, as all of us know, an asteroid hit the Earth with great force. On that day itself, most living animals were snuffed out. And then the climate changed because it threw up so much dust. For several hundred years, the climate was completely altered. And as a result, most animals, including dinosaurs, were not able to adapt and they became extinct. So that's part of the story. The other part of the story is amongst the survivors were some small animals that managed to dig into the ground, and they stayed underground till the dust settled. And then when they came out, the sun was shining and there was nothing else. And so they became the most numerous, the most dominant new species, and those are mammals, our ancestors. So if we exist today and we're talking, it's because of this event. And why I start with this is it illustrates beautifully a point that says when things change too rapidly, suddenly, very rapidly, there's a shock. People are not able to adapt. Animals are not able to adapt. Societies, companies struggle to adapt. And there's a lot of suffering, and you may even become extinct. And that's happening right now. Right now, what is happening in this 21st century is an extreme rate of change. And all of us experience this daily. If you see just what is happening between India and the United States in the last few days, it's unfolding with, first of all, it's unbelievable. And then it's unfolding with great speed. And this is happening in so many different dimensions. So today's challenge is how to adapt. The world will change more in this century, this 100 years, than all the previous 10, 15,000 years of human history. So that's what I want to talk about. And that's what this book is about. And if you can read at the top, there's an endorsement by my old boss, Bill Gates. And he says, look, when things are changing so rapidly, Ravi's emphasis to stay curious and adaptable is really, really important. And that's what I'm going to be emphasizing a lot today. Now, first of all, why is there so much change suddenly? And why is it only going to increase, not slow down? And there's no going back to the way it was. And for that, I want you to imagine a cyclone or a depression in the Bay of Bengal. And this time there's not one cyclone, but let's say there are 4 cyclones, and they collide and they merge. Well, that unleashes explosive energy. Okay, this is called a perfect storm. And these different storms, they feed off each other. So this is what is happening right now. So there are 4 or 5 major trends which are colliding and amplifying each other. One of the trends is climate change. Or it's actually much broader than that. It is the revenge of the planet. We have been living in an unsustainable way for 150 years, much more in the last 50. And now the planet is beginning to react. Nature's going to put us back in our place. And you already see more and more extreme weather events. You saw the flash flood in Uttarakhand where there was a cloud burst and suddenly the river rose and everything got swept away. The same thing happened about 3-4 weeks ago in Texas, even in a rich country with all its advanced warning systems. There was a night of heavy rain in Texas. The river rose 20 feet in a matter of a couple of hours and swept away over 250 people. You see more and more extreme temperatures. We're now seeing Delhi touch 50 degrees Celsius in peak summer. that's going to be nothing. I think we're going to see many, many places where the temperature breaches 60 degrees Celsius. And not only that, the nighttime temperature may never go below 45. It's hard for humans to survive and live in these conditions. India is going to be more affected than any other country because we also depend completely on our food, on rain-fed agriculture. And so if the monsoons change, if they dry up, then, I think food's going to become a big issue. So this climate change is not something that's going to happen somewhere else later. It's happening here and now, and it's going to happen with increasing ferocity. The second big trend that's happening is technology. And you can talk about various technologies, but I think the one that is most relevant to all of us listening to this conversation is AI. ChatGPT 5 was released yesterday, and it's even more capable than its predecessors. It's now virtually indistinguishable from the world authority on any subject. Last week, Microsoft Research put out a report which says, here are the 40 jobs which are going to be most affected soon. And here are the 40 jobs that probably won't be affected. On the list of 40 most affected include software programmers, lawyers, chartered accountants, researchers, writers, all these kinds of jobs. And I know people say, oh, don't worry, AI is not going to take your job away. A person using AI will probably take your job away. So just make sure you're that person. Use AI. That's kind of nice. It's cute, but I think it's too simplistic. The reality is a person using AI is going to be able to do the job of many more people. And then what happens to those people? So we are likely to see a huge amount of job erosion in the short term and a lot of wage compression, i.e. salaries going down. So that's a big, big, big issue. And jobs anyway were a problem even before AI. Prasad, you did your PhD thesis on that. And so maybe you should be giving the talk. But we'll spend more time on that. A third trend is what's happening both within countries and between countries, which is divisions, polarization. You see in the US, they had their election last year. There were two groups that couldn't barely stand to be in the same country. And they're so divided on every issue. In India as well, you see over the last so many years, there's so many fracture lines. We are a country that's divided. There is divisions between countries. What's happening between US and India? Every previous president has said we are natural allies, the defining partnership of the 21st century. And what's happening today is very interesting. So there are all kinds of cracks and fissures just at the time when we need to be working together to address issues like climate and so on. And finally, there's demographics. The world is getting older, mostly, other than Africa. The good news is most of us on this call, because of reasonably good food and healthcare, will live longer than our parents and grandparents. Many will live into the 90s. A few may even make it to 100. And normally that is good news. The only problem is this collides with the need for employment. If you're going to live to 85, 95, then you don't want to retire at 60 and sit at home and drive your spouse crazy. You want to be productive, you want to work, you want to earn some money till you're at least 75. Problem is, nobody wants to hire anybody above 45. Today, if you're over 45, you're living on borrowed time as an employee. So this is a big issue. In many countries, population is already declining, well below the replenishment rate. India has also dipped below its replenishment rate. That means our population will now start peaking and then come down. Only Africa is still getting younger and younger. So there's all these things happening, and therefore it's not going to get any easier. I think the next decades are going to be enormously challenging times for a lot of us. But the good thing is, so much turbulence, so much change also throws up opportunities. And so If you have the right mindset, if you have the right skills, and you approach things the right way, the right strategies, this could also be a very, very good time at an individual level. So I thought I'll put up 3 or 4 ideas for us to react to. The first one is, look, forget about stable jobs leading to stable careers. It doesn't exist. It'll apply, this idea of a stable job or a stable career will apply to fewer and fewer of us as the years go on. And what you're going to see is more and more of musical chairs. You remember musical chairs where the music stops, boom, and you don't have a chair. That's what happens in companies. You can be working in Google, Microsoft, Infosys, it doesn't matter. And you could be in a good team performing reasonably well. And suddenly there'll be a reorganization. The company will decide we're no longer going to do this, and 9,000 people will be gone. And so the music stops and you don't have a chair. And unfortunately, when it's hard to get back in the game because of some of the dynamics I talked about. So that's going to happen. AI, as automation kicks in a serious way. Right now, what's happening in companies is just pilots. But as the pilots begin to scale, workflows get automated, many fewer people will be needed. And you're already seeing this in IT services where the companies are growing, not very fast, but growing, but they're not hiring more people. And AI in particular will kill entry-level jobs, which is the most worrying. So how do you become Ravi? How do you become Prasad or Professor Rao if there isn't an entry-level job for you to start and then grow in expertise and grow in wisdom? So these are all important issues. And so in my book, I say the faster you think about becoming self-employed, the faster you think about becoming an entrepreneur. It doesn't have to run a big company. Entrepreneur means just have a sustainable business, employ yourself and a few others. The faster you can learn to do these things, the better off you're going to be. So that's kind of message number 1. Message number 2 is from that, the most important skill, if you ask me, in this period of time is the entrepreneurial mindset. So for the last 100 years, we used to think of entrepreneurship as a career choice. So I'll take a job at, doesn't matter, ICICI Bank, or I'll go become an entrepreneur. That's a choice. Or I'll join the government and civil service. No, today entrepreneurship is more like a life skill, an existential skill, just like you need to know arithmetic, just like you need to know language and English, just like you need to, have these foundational skills. Entrepreneurship is an essential skill. Why? Because in this century, although jobs are going to be fewer, opportunities are going to be plenty, because every problem is an opportunity waiting for you to solve it, and potentially in a way that makes money. For instance, in the city where I live, those of you from Bangalore know that we're drowning in garbage. BBMP is unable to manage the amount of garbage we generate. All the landfills around us are full. Oh, this could be an enormous business opportunity in so many ways, in terms of solid waste management, in terms of turning wet waste to biogas, in terms of recycling, so on and so forth. So every problem that we have right now is also an opportunity if you have the right mindset and the right skills. So the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship is it's not something you're born with, it's something that you learn. Very few people on the planet are born entrepreneurs. Okay, it's something you get better at through practice. And so my own organization, Game, and particularly my co-founder, Mekin Maheshwari, he has developed the largest entrepreneurship curriculum in the world. Today, this Friday morning, more than 1.5 million children, standards 9 to 12, in 10,000 government schools in 13 states, went through our entrepreneurship curriculum. Many of them are graduating and they're not even bothering to look for jobs. They're starting businesses. So this is proof that even kids from the poorest socioeconomic backgrounds, the worst government schools can learn entrepreneurship like this. One of the things Mekin does is in the summer holidays gives everybody 1,000 rupees. They have to get into teams of 3 people, 4 people, and they have to launch a business. This is not some business plan. They have to actually launch a business, run it, and at the end of the summer holidays, they have to say what they did and give back the principal, and they can keep the profits. So, and most of them actually make a profit, which means what? This is a skill that is not all that hard. It's a way of thinking. So entrepreneurial mindset's really important. The third thing I would say in the age of AI is if you're mediocre at something, you're dead. You won't hold on to your job for very long. Now, this is very different from my generation or the previous generation, where if you were educated, you showed up and did a reasonable job, didn't do too much to upset your boss, you could look forward to a reasonable life and retirement. Today, if you're mediocre, you will be quickly replaced by someone using AI. So you have to, whatever you do, you have to be excellent at it, excellent attitude and excellent, expertise, excellent performance. So this is crucial. And the problem is today, most of us have studied what we did, not because we were good at it or wanted or enjoyed it, but because the world pushed us to it. So we have too many mediocre engineers who don't like engineering. Okay? The world doesn't need that. What we need is people who are really good at something and love what they do. And that could be a stand-up comedian. It could be anything. A vlogger. It doesn't matter, but you have to be excellent. So that's a key idea. And so we can talk about how do you figure out what you're excellent at. The last couple of points before I stop talking is if you don't want to be replaced by a machine, i.e. AI, then you have to stop acting like a machine. And you have to start being more uniquely human. So AI can do a lot of things that better than us, particularly acquire information, process information, solve structured problems, do repetitive tasks and all that. But at least for now and for the foreseeable future, AI is likely to be challenged on things that are what we consider very, very human. So one of those is, for instance, empathy. When Prasad got on the call and we started talking, he immediately established a connection with me. He told me that he had graduated from the same IIT. I immediately asked which hostel, and within about 60 seconds, we had developed a certain bond, and we talked about PhD and so forth. AI will not be able to build this kind of relationship of empathy and trust quickly. So that's something very important, and we have to develop the skill. Creativity, real creativity is still beyond the realm of current AI. Critical thinking. So AI can be very good at solving a problem. But what we can still do is ask the right question. Einstein said, look, the answer you get depends on the question you ask. And so if I have to solve a problem, I will spend 80% of the time framing the problem correctly, asking the right question. So that is something that is a unique quality. Judgment. So, we are going to be confronted with a lot of information. Some of it will be factual information. A lot is going to be fake information, false information. You use different AIs, you'll get different results. Sometimes they hallucinate. So ultimately, our human ability to take all this and use our judgment to make a decision is still very important. Storytelling. The thing that distinguishes humans from every other animal is the capacity to imagine something that doesn't exist and tell a story about it, right? That's what every entrepreneur does. They tell a story about a business that doesn't exist, but they're going to build. So storytelling is very important. And the Brahmastra in terms of skills is leadership, because if you are able to inspire other people to join you in accomplishing something that is necessary or nobody else has been able to do, you're gold. You don't have to worry about anything. People will come to you. So I devote a whole chapter in my book to this issue of leadership. And leadership, I'm sure that out of the 57 participants we have on this call right now, 56 at least will be confusing leadership with title, position, authority, power. They'll say, oh, so-and-so is minister, leader. So-and-so is vice president, and they'll call them a leader. And maybe they're a leader, but maybe they're just a risk-averse, untrustworthy person who nobody will follow. Okay, that's not leadership. So we are confusing power, title with leadership. Leadership is a behavior, it's an act. I give an example often. Sometimes we're stuck in a traffic jam. You come to some crossroad and everything is jammed, people are frustrated, blowing the horn, things are getting worse. There's no policeman. So somebody will get out and start directing traffic. Slowly things start moving, and nobody knows who's this person, what was his name, who gave him the authority to go do this, who asked him to do that. That's leadership. So if you can be that person in many, many situations that you encounter, I don't think you have much to worry about. The final thing I will say before we open it up to conversation is resilience. Every one of us is going to experience severe shocks in our life because of the bumpy environment we live in. So when you're in a flight, sometimes you encounter turbulence or severe turbulence, and the captain says, "Look, please fasten your seat belts and don't move." Okay. So we're in one of those situations. It's very bumpy. It's going to get bumpier. And so you have to fasten your seat belts and brace yourself for some shocks. And so you need to do a few things. One of them is you need a financial cushion or nest egg. Okay. If you lose your job, you don't have your income for some time, you should be able to survive. So have you managed your finances well? But more important than tangible assets, even more, or at least as important as your financial assets, are your intangible assets, which is, as a professional, which is what most of us are. Do you have a professional reputation, a positive one? Do you have networks, which are more than just friends on Facebook, real people? During COVID, what we realized is, look, nothing works. The only thing that works is our closest friends and family, and we have to help each other. So do you have really close friends and family that you can count on and they can count on you? Do you have faith? The time has come where even atheists have to believe in a power greater than themselves. So, people like Bill Gates, they may not believe in a God and a creator, but they have a faith in something greater than themselves. That is technology. That they're called techno-optimists for a reason. So whatever it is, we all have to believe in something that is much greater than ourselves, because when the going gets rough, you need to have that faith. So I can go on and on. A lot of this is in the book. A lot of it is in my next book. My next book is called When Will AI Steal My Job? And so I hope to put that out in a few months. But today I'm keen to engage in a conversation on these subjects or anything else that might interest you.
Amazing, sir. Amazing. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the finest voices from the landscape of corporate world and entrepreneurial world of leadership, critical thinking, and many others rolled into one. I'll take a moment to acknowledge the fact that we are joined by some of the finest leaders as well on this around the screen from various cities and towns in the country, some of them from the UK and some of them from the US. All of the timings are odd. That's the pull power of Mr. Ravi Venkatesan. I am very grateful to you, sir, for doing this session. What we thought is going to be how to make Bharat Vikasit is now turning into be what the heck do I do with my life? Actually, both converge.
It's how to make yourself Viksit.
Absolutely.
You know,
It falls in place. Absolutely.
yeah.
and I'm quite enthusiastic about the fact that there are lots of questions. A large number of people have joined live on Facebook as well. So the number is actually pretty larger than what we see here.
Yeah.
I'm happy, sir, you have pulled so many eager viewers, learners from around the world. They're actually leaders unto themselves, but all of them are learners as well. I want to thank
Every
all of
leader
them.
is a learner.
Yeah, amazing. So we will have two clusters of Q&A. The first cluster, I'll request Professor Prasad to start. I'll come for the second. In the second cluster, I'll request the members in the audience to raise their hand, and I'll make them talk to you directly as well. Okay, sir. So
Thank
Professor
you.
Prasad, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, Ravi, for a very different kind of an intro and a very quick pivot, which kind of, forces us to connect the questions that we have to the theme that you have to make your responses more valuable to us. I think you put us right in the middle of that. So I'll start with one about your own background. You started with the mech, went into mech and industrial engineering, did MBA management. Then you rose to the top of Microsoft India. Then you went on to co-chair. So now there have been, and then you are into social entrepreneurship. So lots of ideas here, lots of intrapreneurship here to get where you were, and that also connects to the ideas that you mentioned about learn to be an entrepreneur. You were in a sense, and the entrepreneurial mindset, and some of the other ideas that you discussed. So when you traverse this, how have your visions and aspirations been changed? I mean, in terms of decisions, habits, what are those critical things that you'd like to communicate based on these ideas of faster learning, entrepreneurial mindset from your experience?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Look, I think I've had a pretty interesting career. There are many people, many people who are vastly more successful than I am. But I'm grateful that I've had a very interesting and fulfilling professional life. And I think, as you correctly say, Prasad, what is interesting is I've done so many different things. I spent the first 15 years of my professional life building diesel engines and generator sets. Then I get a chance to build and lead Microsoft India. So that was very different. Then I had these amazingly interesting board stints at Infosys, helping turn around Bank of Baroda and so on. Then, I've started many social enterprises of my own and funds of my own and so on and so forth. So what is interesting is, number one, I remain curious. You see, everybody is born curious. If you look at a child, age 1, age 2, incredibly curious. You want to touch everything, lick everything, put a finger in the plug point, see if glass will break, whatever. Somewhere by the time you're 10, this is beaten out of us. We stop being curious. We start conforming, complying, and so forth. Thanks to good parents and good teachers, good managers, I've remained curious. And more importantly, when something was really interesting, I had the courage to not worry about will I fail, but go take a risk and do it. So, for instance, I was, I'd gone, there was no great risk in going to the US because, Prasad, back in those days, 2/3 of the class would go to the US. So I joined that herd, stampede that was going to the US. That was no big deal. What was unusual was deciding to come back in 96. So in 96, India had still not, fully opened up. It wasn't flourishing in the way it is today in some ways. And when I decided to come back, it was to head a failing joint venture in Jamshedpur. And the only reason I got that job was nobody else wanted it. Who wants to become the MD of a failing company? So I said, no, I'm interested. I'll do it. And the CEO of the company called me and said, are you mad? Why would you do this? We think you're a high potential person. One day you could run Cummins. Why would you go back and do this? I said, I'm curious. I'm curious about what's happening in India. I want to be part of a generation that helps rebuild modern India. I will not get it. I was 32 years old. I will not get a chance to be the CEO of a large company for some more years unless I grab these opportunities. So I took the risk and did that. In 2003, for whatever reason, Microsoft was interested in me to be the chairman and build the company in India. And again, everybody I asked, including Nandan Nilekani, my mother, my wife, said, don't do this, you'll fail. So you don't know anything about that industry. It's a tough company, tough culture. Why do you want to leave this good company called Cummins? And I said, look here, I'm 40 now, when I turn 50, which will I regret more? That I had a chance and I was too scared to fail, so I said no, or I took it and I was fired a year later. I said, let me try that. Okay. Then again, in 2011, I left Microsoft as a chairman with, on very good terms. If you see the book, it's endorsed by Bill Gates, which says that I have a good relationship. I could have stayed on for another decade, but I was curious about doing all these other things, starting, the entrepreneurship mission, the energy mission, doing all these things. So the point here is, it is really important that all of us remain curious, not be afraid of failure, but take risks, develop the courage to take risks, and work hard to make those risks, into successes. So, yeah, I think those are the ideas that I would like to leave behind, because today my career looks somewhat unusual. I think in 10, 20 years, this sort of shift from A to B to C to D is going to become much more common.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think, you've kind of given us a glimpse of what AI is going to do to many of our careers, and more so for those who are coming in at this stage. And we better get used to it, is the kind of message that you're giving indirectly. I think I'll take that to the next, question. And here I'll bring in AI. And what kind of steps do you think, as a country, as sectors, and this area, I'd also like to include education, we need to take to tackle this position of, positioning AI for our requirements? Already there are so many large organizations which are so much at the forefront, so much of investment going to it. We are coming in, at a certain time. There are so many views about it. Nandan Nikali has spoken about it. Many others have. Now, what would you suggest so that we make the best of the curve at this stage?
Look, first of all, for a long time, I don't spend time saying, what should the world do? What should India do? What should Infosys do? I'm very interested in what should you do, okay? And frankly, that's what should interest most of the audience right now. There's a sort of academic curiosity of what should India do? And that's a complex question. It's a legitimate question. But I think what is far more important is, what should you do to position yourself well? Because if more of us succeed, then the country will automatically do fine. For those of you who are interested in what India should do and all that, I have an article coming out in Mint next week. It's very blunt, very direct. Please look for it. But I think what is important is, what should you do to succeed? The number one thing you have to do is, be using whatever your role is today, be using relevant tools. Okay, you need to be proficient, if not a power user of AI tools in your work. So, for instance, write a lot. I do a lot of research, and so I use all the different things. I use ChatGPT, I do Gemini, I use Perplexity, I use Claude, because they're good at different things, and I'm quite good at all that. I use Notebook LLM for creating these little podcast kind of things. So figure out, if you're a creator, then how do you create movies, how do you create images, and do all those things. You better figure out what is relevant to your role and be at the front of the curve in terms of using it, being creative, being productive, and so on. As I said, the second thing you need to do is become exceptionally good. There's no room for mediocrity, no forgiveness in organizations for people who are average. Okay, because every few months they're doing a purge, quiet purge on performance. And so if you're not up there, it's not going to end well. So how do you do that? As I said, you can't do that by doing something that you don't love. There's this concept, Prasad, called ikigai. As you know, the three circles: what you're good at, what you love doing, and what the world values and would be willing to pay for. I added a fourth circle, which is ikigai, what AI cannot do. Okay. So you need to figure out what is it that you love, what is it that you're good at, what is it AI can't do, and what is the world willing to pay for. Okay. So I have done that successfully in my life. So right now I don't worry about will some chap using AI replace me. Okay. For what I do, there is no replacement. Okay. I told all of you to learn how to practice being a leader. There is a leader in every one of us. Leaders are made and they are not born. And how do you do it? By showing situational leadership, whatever context you have. In your organization, something is not happening. Everybody is waiting for the boss to do it. He's not or she's not doing it. So find a way to take charge. And usually people are waiting for that leadership and they'll follow you. Same thing in the community out here. So, for instance, in my book, What the Heck, I talk about, there's a whole chapter on leadership. And I talk about my neighbor, Padma Shri, who's a housewife in Koramangala, Bangalore. And she got upset at the garbage situation. And she one day decided she's going to clean it in front of her house. Everybody was shocked, lady. And so they immediately rushed to help her. Then they cleaned the whole street. Then they clean the whole area. Then they start for deciding to, separate wet and dry waste, segregation. Started composting. Today, she's the leading waste activist in Bangalore. That's leadership. So learn to start behaving, acting in all these ways. Okay. So I'm much more interested, Prasad, in how individuals prepare to survive and flourish in this time. You know, India needs to do a lot. I think, first of all, we have to stop being so self congratulatory as though we're already Viksit. Okay. It's a journey. We have to work hard. There are a lot of problems and struggles ahead of us. Um, our education system is not helping us turn out people in large numbers who will be at, build these kinds of technologies. Our companies, even cash-rich companies, are not investing in R&D. So what happens? Everybody who's really smart leaves India, goes somewhere else to build these things. The people at the forefront of AI are disproportionately Indians. They just happen to be in the US or somewhere else. So we have to create. So what should India do? Create the conditions to grow more of them and keep more of them. Okay. We're not short of talent. We're short of the environmental conditions for this talent to really do its best job.
Excellent. I think in reposing the question, you've also given responses to my original question, and specifically as educators, what we need to do. And I think first we need to know what we should do as educators and then help students do that.
Yeah, the problem with our education, Prasad, is it's still a system that was designed more than 100 years ago for a world which no longer exists. So the education still teaches us information where information is infinite and free. Any child with a cell phone has all the world's information accessible. It teaches us to do structured problem solving. Well, too bad. Machines are better at that. Okay? It's not teaching us to act as humans. It's teaching us compliance, whereas it should teach us creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship. So our whole education system has to be fundamentally rethought in a way that we're still congratulating ourselves for the advance that the new education policy represents. Yes, it was a significant improvement, but it is nowhere near enough for where we need to be.
I think you've given, even more food for thought. I think you've also, connecting it back to what you've said, we have to help our students discover what they're really good at. And you've mentioned it in your 10th class support venture that you've done where they're getting profits and returning your principal. And I think we'll have to help each student discover that, whether it is school or whether it is higher education, we'll have to do that. And the education environment will have to be shaped into that. And that's going to be a huge disruption given what it is today. But I think there is no choice as it goes along. How much time we have is the big question. Thank you very much, Ravi. I think, in 2 questions I've taken, it's now 7:17. I hand it back to Professor Rao, but, very interesting.
Thank you, Professor Prasad. Sir, I have one question if you still want to answer this. A lot has been said about Viksit Bharat. What, according to you, are the metrics that we should go by when we can declare that India is Viksit? There's a lot of emotion in this.
Yeah.
By emotion, we don't achieve anything. Emotion is not downplayed, but emotion is just not enough.
I think that's a superb question, and I think it's a complex question. And I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person to have some views, but that's no more than your views or anybody else's views. I think our metrics are critical. For instance, we are priding ourselves on the GDP crossing Japan and becoming, in nominal terms, the third largest GDP in the world. On one hand, I think that is definitely a moment of some satisfaction, given where we started in 1947 and the desperate condition that the Brits left us in. So that is very much progress to be appreciated, and it's a milestone. We also say our per capita GDP is $2,200, because that is 4 trillion divided by 1.4 billion, whatever that number. The truth is, we should focus not on the average GDP per capita, but the median. What is the number that half the Indians earn more than or less than? That turns out to be $500, okay? Or just about 100 rupees a day. So half of India is living on 100 rupees a day. This is not Viksit, okay? You can't have a life of any dignity on 100 rupees a day, okay? So the point is, it is very important for us to not cover up performance, but have the right rigorous metrics and work hard towards improving those metrics. Another metric I think that is very, very important is more and more businesses growing faster and faster, creating more and more jobs. So if you see India today, the big guys are growing, but 98% of India's businesses are small businesses employing less than 10 people. And they face such struggles that they are unable to grow. They're called dwarfs. That's one of the reasons why we are not creating enough jobs, because they are not growing. Okay. So we need to have a metric around the growth of small businesses into medium businesses and medium businesses into large. Okay. The best antidote to poverty is a good job. The reality today is half of India is not in employment. So we need to figure out how to give everybody a productive, livelihood with some dignity. That is Viksit. Healthcare. In a Viksit Bharat, primary healthcare should be free. And it should be of such quality that babus and netas are going to the primary healthcare center rather than Apollo Hospital. That's when we know that it is Viksit. So I think this is a great question. As a country, people need to sit together and define these metrics and then work towards it.
Great, sir. Thank you very much for throwing light on the metrics for growth rates, for jobs, for primary health, so on and so forth. So only with metrics we drive this emotion forward. Otherwise, it will remain as an emotion itself and priding ourselves on empty emotions. So thank you so much, sir. I'll take the next question. The next question is, we are quite curious to understand very briefly, how did you resolve the crisis at Infosys during your time?
Ouch. I'm not sure this is a great question for such a public conversation, but let me simply say that between 2014 and 2018, Infosys, which was and remains one of India's greatest companies, went through a difficult transition. in, Nandan Nilekani, who's the co-founder and currently the chairman and a good friend of mine, put it beautifully. He said, what we didn't realize except after the fact is we were going through multiple transitions at the same time. So what happened is all the founders decided to at the same time leave the board and do whatever they wanted to do next. And so for the first time, you had a founder-led company and a founder-led board become a professional independent board. The first time in the history of the company, it went outside the company to hire a CEO. That was the second big transition. A third big transition was the industry transition that was also happening. So there were so many things happening at the same time that I think the company got into some difficulty. The board was divided on how to deal with the challenges. Half the board wanted to do X, the other half wanted to do Y, and it became a bit of a crisis. And I asked myself, how will history judge us if Infosys does not succeed? If the company fails, like great companies like GE and all have failed, history will not be kind to us. So we need to make some difficult decisions. And that's what we did. And I, in particular, had to play a leadership role. The board asked me to become the co-chair. People like Kiran and I, we were able to get everybody to talk together again. We persuaded Nandan Nilekani to come out of retirement and once again lead the company. And that has turned out to be a very, very good decision. The share price of the company is triple what it was at that time. And I feel very good about the way the board was able to discharge its fiduciary duties. We, of course, unfortunately, all this was playing out in the glare of media, which was unnecessary and regrettable. But I think we made good decisions which saved the company, and history hopefully will see it positively.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it's a case study in the realms of corporate turnaround and leadership, more importantly, in turbulent times like that, where so many transitions were taking place at one time.
This again is an example of leadership where you need to decide what needs to be done, and you should have the courage to step up, even if you face, some amount of criticism and so on and so forth. So I think in this 21st century, more and more of us have to step up and do what we think is dharma.
Thank you, sir. Before I open the mic for the members in the audience, I have a small question, sir. On an average, for the members who are around the screen, what can they expect, or what are the two things that the members can expect from your game so that directly benefits them?
Oh, I don't know. First of all, what is GAME? GAME is a not-for-profit I started nearly 7 years ago to try and help address the unemployment situation by creating millions and millions of small first-time entrepreneurs. We want ordinary people to start ordinary businesses that create 3 jobs, 5 jobs, 10 jobs. And that's why we call it mass entrepreneurship. We are not interested in tech startups, venture capital, unicorns. We want ordinary businesses, ordinary people in every small town, district of the country. That's why we call it mass entrepreneurship. We've been working for nearly 7 years on trying to understand how to do this. And mostly we have learned what doesn't work. Finally, in the last 1 year, we think we're on a path where things are working. We're right now working in Nagpur. We're working in Vizag. We're working in Nagaland. We're soon to be starting in Lucknow. And what we're finding is a model that allows us to activate people in that city to step up and start working together towards making the city Viksit. Okay, so Viksit Nagpur, Viksit Vizag. And if you can get people to really, really take ownership and work together with the government, private sector businesses, the banker, the IIM, the engineering college, all working together, we are finding a lot of progress being made. So this is our model. We want to, this year itself, go to 10 more cities. Every state government, fortunately, is very excited, open, supportive. And within 5 to 10 years, we want to have 200 cities of India, which are entrepreneurial hubs, entrepreneurial hotspots. So that is the dream that we have. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get there. We may not get there in 10 years, we may get there in 15, but we'll get there.
Fantastic, sir. Fantastic. I'm actually very enthusiastic to share with you that ICFAI as an institution is present in most of these locations that you mentioned.
We should separately after this talk about how do we involve some of your members.
Yeah, we are present in Nagaland, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Tripura. We are present in most of the Northeast states, and then of course non-Northeast also we are present in about 7 states.
Wonderful.
All in all, 16 states we are present with our business schools, universities, tech schools, law schools, so on and so forth.
So
yes, sir.
Let's follow up on, have a follow-up conversation.
I'll do that. I'll do that. And now let me get to the most interesting part of allowing the members of audience to
answer. But we're also out of time.
Yes, we will just take 1 or 2 questions, sir. Kindly permit us.
Sure.
Professor Mahendra Reddy, our distinguished advisor, I'll request.
Oh. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
First of all, let me congratulate you. I remember you visited ICFAI some years ago. One thing I want to share, common between you and me, is you went to the United States, and one of the difficult questions was to return. I went to the United States. I went to Chicago. I spent 7 years there, but one of the difficult decisions was I returned. That was 1972. So
wow.
My question is, ICFAI University is one of the largest and top universities in the country. We have introduced entrepreneurship program right in the BBA first year. My question is, how can we get success in this program and turn out at least 10% of the entire ICFAI students graduating become entrepreneurs, and that number should increase more and more. So this is not only a problem in ICFAI, but in the country, you see. Thank you, sir. That's one question. Second is, critical thinking is one thing which you have emphasized. I always think about how to introduce critical thinking, you see. Thank you, sir.
So I think we should take a close look at the entrepreneurship curriculum as it is currently designed and see if there are some changes that will make it even better. One of the things that we find essential is to expose students to successful entrepreneurs and different role models. Okay, so nothing inspires people as much as these role models of success. So in our program, we always bring in successful local entrepreneurs to talk to the kids, and that tends to be quite effective. The second thing is to make sure that the curriculum is not academic, but experiential, okay? Which means they must have a lot of practical experience and then be forced to launch a business. So even Harvard Business School, about 15 years ago, Nitin Noria, when he became dean, introduced a compulsory entrepreneurship curriculum in the second year MBA program. And students had to also launch a business, not just a business case study or a business plan competition. So you have to make it experiential. Third thing you have to do is create a body or a large number of business ideas. Sometimes a person knows the kind of business they want to start. Sometimes they don't. So to have a directory of here are the different 150 different businesses you can build, and here's how to build them, is often very useful. And we are building such a solutions directory. Fourth one is to have mentors who can help you. And today we are trying to actually build an AI mentor, because that's actually the most reliable way to have your questions answered as a first-time entrepreneur. So these are some ideas, but we'd love to actually look at your actual curriculum and offer you some maybe helpful suggestions.
The second one was critical thinking. How do you promote critical thinking in the class? You see, just you teach everything subject, but how do we inculcate critical thinking among the students? Yeah, you mentioned about it.
Very tricky question. That's why I was hoping you'd let me go. But like a good professor, you caught me and brought me back. I think one of the ways I would say is we ourselves have to model critical thinking. So I gave a simple example of that per capita GDP, the median versus the mean. Okay. And so when you're teaching, to be able to catch some statistic like that and challenge people, okay, or for instance, get people to answer a very simple question. How much should you pay your maid or your security guard or your driver or one of these people? And that's a very interesting question, because most people will say, well, this is what people around here are paid, 10,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees. That's called the prevailing wage. Then somebody else will say, oh, it should be the minimum wage, which is stipulated by the law. Okay. Then there is, can you live on that wage with dignity? Would you like to make that money? No. Okay, then you say, what does it cost? What is the wage if you want to live a life of dignity? You also have aspirations to put your children through school and college so they become middle class. That's a totally different number. So suddenly you have a discussion on a very simple question. How much should you pay your cook? So I think this cultivates a certain critical thinking. It gets people to think about ethical choices. So it's role modeling it in the routine questions that come up in the course of class life or in the course of the workplace as a manager. But if I as a teacher or I as a manager don't have critical thinking myself, it is pretty unlikely that the people who work around me will.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much. Permit me, because I have already added Mr. Sridhar Satyaraju to ask you the question. Please go ahead, Mr. Sridhar.
Yeah.
Hi, Sri.
Yeah. Hi, Ravi, and thanks for this question and lovely session. I have been an entrepreneur since COVID took my job at a private bank. My question is, in your book, you talked about a chapter on money, where financial discipline, minimalism, and having an abundance mindset are critical to, achieving good results with money. My question is, to have an abundant mindset, you need to have those multiple pools of money and capital coming from making investments, right? Do you really think that with the current saving habits of Indians or household patterns in equity investing, do you really think abundance mindset can be achieved? And in that context, I wanted to ask you, Ravi, if you are willing to share your asset allocation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, I thank you for asking the question. Abundance mindset has nothing to do with your bank balance or your income. Okay. There is a lady near my house who is a professional beggar. She comes every morning at the traffic signal and she's there. And we chat and we laugh a lot. And invariably, she offers me and other people a cup of tea. Okay. So there is, and you all know people like that. Very poor, very humble, but they're always smiling and will offer you some tea or whatever, offer to share a meal. That is an abundance mindset. I also know many billionaires who don't give any money. So it doesn't matter how much money you have a scarcity mindset. So this is why it's called a mindset. It is,
Right.
it's how we think. And that is what has to be reframed. So you asked a question of what is my asset allocation? Well, one of the things I did, one of the better decisions I made fairly early on when I was young is to save as much as possible. And I invested it in the equity markets. When I was in the US, it was in the US equity markets. When I came back to India, I invested in the Indian equity markets. And since I've been investing since early 90s, the markets have done very well for me. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a fairly passive investor. So I don't go in and out of stocks. I'm not trading. I'm not buying Bitcoin. I'm not doing any of these wacky things, derivatives. I simply buy good companies and I hold on to them like Warren Buffett for a long, long time. And that dumb passive strategy has worked exceptionally well for me.
Thanks. So that validates my conviction in equities. If there is a follow-up question I wanted to ask.
No, you can't.
Okay, fine. Thanks.
Okay, so connect with me on LinkedIn and we'll see.
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks, Dr. Sudhakar.
Okay, well, look, I think we need to bring an end to this fantastic session. I want to thank you for inviting me, and I want to thank all the participants for staying with us. And yeah, do read the book, do follow me on LinkedIn or one of the other channels.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. Thanks for your energy and expertise in holding us through this very important conversation. Beyond turbulent times, beyond VUCA, beyond Bani, in simple language, it is unsimple times. And how do we navigate these unsimple times through some kind of measured objectives? I think that's the summary of the conversation. I will not attempt to draw all the highlights of the conversation because you were already pretty clear, crystal clear in what you said. I'll save this time. We'll go back and do a summary, sir. I'll share a document, a draft with you. Once you approve, we'll put it on our website. And also I will share a recording of this conversation by Tuesday evening. And I would love to sit with you for a cup of coffee and then discuss all those pending points.
Yeah, and let's talk about how to get some of the people involved in game in the different locations that we're in.
Yes.
That would be very useful. Again, have a wonderful weekend and good luck to everybody. It's going to be an amazing, amazing time. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll again meet on Friday next week on 15th. There is no holiday for learning. Today is a holiday and 15th is also a holiday, but learning sessions will continue. Session number 206 will be by Naga Prakasam, who is the mentor in residence at NS Raghavan Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership at IIM Bangalore. He is going to talk about Back to Bharat, the road to sustainability. And we'll sit down again to learn at 6:30 p.m. Till then, keep browsing, keep watching the videos, keep reading the books written by Mr. Ravi Venkatesan, and stay happy and stay learned. We'll come back. Have a great weekend and good night.